Welcome to another broadcast of the Deborah Ruffini Show on the Artist First Radio Network. All past shows are archived. You can find them at artistfirst.com. And now, from England, here she is, your host, Deborah Ruffini.
Greetings from England. This is Deborah Ruffini with another broadcast of the Deborah Ruffini Show. Today it is my pleasure to be speaking with my very dear friend who works with young people, helping them to live more fulfilling lives. Lovely to be chatting with you, dear. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. Yeah, it's good to be talking to you again. We met a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? And
yeah, we did. Yeah.
A good old natter about things.
Pleasure to be on the show. So thank you for asking me.
Oh no, the pleasure's ours. You do such great work with our younger generation. Not the easiest to I don't like the word deal with, but not the easiest always to be in communication with and help. Shall we say it's a lot of people would find that quite a challenge. Just generally.
Yeah, I've got to say I prefer working with teenagers than I do little kids. They scare me.
Do you?
Teenagers, I find easier, and I don't know if that's because I maybe understand some of the challenges. Maybe, don't know.
Oh, that's interesting. I guess it's maybe what we can personally relate to. I'd be the other way round. I think so. Once they hit 13, no. Hand them over to someone else because you've then got the challenging years. Oh wow! So what gave you the interest to do the line of work that you do?
Well, mainly that I had a couple of things happen in my life, and I was doing a job where I was quite successful. Yeah. But decided that it sounds cheesy, but I wanted to do something where I felt like I was making a difference and giving something back.
Oh, great.
So at that point, I changed my career completely and started working with young people. And it was a brilliant change. I don't ever regret it. But during that first kind of year, because I was also doing my degree at the same time, and during that first year, one of the essays we had to write was about what makes up who you are as a person.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
And it really kind of challenged me and challenged my thinking about who I thought I was and what had kind of shaped me. And I was about 32 years old at the time, I guess, around that. And I remember, because it started to challenge what I was thinking, I was driving home one day with my partner. Yeah. And she said to me, like people do, what you're thinking. And I just blurted out that I had been sexually abused from a very young age. My goodness. And that my earliest memory was about 3 years old. And it was a half brother who was much, much older than me. He's about 25 years older than me. And that carried on until I was 15, nearly 16.
Wow, a long time.
And I had never told anyone this, but it really made me think about who I am. And it wasn't just him. Unfortunately, later on there was a few other guys as well. But then when I started working with young people, kind of putting that into context, I was like, I work with young people who've been through trauma, all sorts of trauma. And some of the things that I've learned through my personal experience, through being, my kind of professional career, has made me think differently about what we do with kids. Right. And one of the main things for me is around consent. We hear those messages around children saying, if anyone touches you inappropriately, you have the right to say no, it's your body. But it feels to me that some people really give mixed messages to kids. So, how many parents do you see where they go and kiss Auntie Jo or whatever, go and kiss them goodbye or go and give them a hug. But what if they don't want to? It's still consent, and what we're saying is you can't consent to that because I'm telling you to do it, but you have to consent to any other kind of touching.
That's interesting,
That's just a mixed message to me. And I think, no, that message needs to start from an early age, which is if you don't want to hug your granny, then don't. Don't make them. Don't force them to do that, because we're then already giving that message of that's what you should do.
Yeah, that's right. It's almost as if it's not having respect for or thinking about little children have rights over their own bodies, or it's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, but people find that acceptable, to push your kid to go and giving someone a kiss or a hug goodbye.
Yeah.
Not acceptable when it's inappropriate. Well, who deems it's inappropriate? It's their body.
Yeah.
It's still their body. So, for me, I think, that's a really simple message. And I think that needs to start from a very, very young age, where we stop doing that mixed message thing, because that's confusing for a child.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And bearing in mind, what we do know, when they get to teenagers, people always sort of also talk about teenagers and, they've made a stupid decision, or they've done this, or they've done that. But the issue is, what we do know is our brains aren't fully developed until roughly the age of 25.
That's quite late.
The last part of the brain to develop is the part that's responsible for kind of processing judgments, thinking sensibly. And then we wonder why teenagers do, kind of sometimes pretty odd things, and you hear people saying, oh, why have you done that? Well, they don't have that brain capacity. It's not developed yet. So part of our responsibility is to teach them, And if you have a child who's been through trauma, then unfortunately that can also have a impact on your development. How you see the world, how you see things around you. Whether you perceive danger in different situations. And speaking personally, unfortunately, lots of my memories from being a kid are pretty. Most of them are around the abuse that happened. Right. Any other memories tend to have to be triggered by something, or, I see a picture and I go, oh yeah, I was there. I do remember.
Yeah.
But for lots of kids, when they have trauma, your trauma response in the brain is that kind of, okay, they might not perceive danger in the same way, or they become the opposite and become hypervigilant and see kind of danger in everything.
Oh, right. What were two ones? Yeah.
But the thing is, for me, is also we think about stranger danger. And for lots of young people, including myself, it wasn't a stranger. I mean, one of them was, but it wasn't a stranger. This was a member of my family, who was a trusted person, who, I say we were close. We got on well, and I think everyone saw that, and the perception was, oh, that's nice, her older brother's just taking her out. They didn't know what was happening. And I never said. And I think that's the thing with lots of young people. There's a stigma around sexual abuse. There always has been, and there always will be. And sometimes you get asked those questions when you hear in the news of celebrities where it's come out that they've been sexually abusing young people for a long time. And I hear people saying, oh, why didn't they say anything sooner? And it's like, well, because regardless, there is a shame attached to it. And even though it's not the child's responsibility, there is still shame attached to that, and you have to do some work on yourself around that shame. But it's also remembering it isn't that stranger danger. These are people who might be trusted, who have what's seen as a caring relationship with that child, yet the child still hasn't consented.
Yes.
And also paedophiles are very, very good at noticing a vulnerable child. And I think kind of my own story, when I was older, I was still in junior school, so obviously before kind of 11. I couldn't tell you the guy's name.
Sure, that's fair enough. Yeah.
I could take you to his house still, but
do it.
They're very good at spotting vulnerable children. And I was the one that took the chocolate. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Which, and they're very good at doing that and manipulating things. And it's not till later when you suddenly think back and they're kind of like, oh, okay. But they become very good at spotting the vulnerabilities in kids. And I think as a message kind of out there really is we need to stop putting this stigma around sexual abuse. The bottom line is they are still a child.
Yeah.
Now, back when this happened to me, we didn't hear the words exploitation. We didn't hear the words grooming, whereas now we know I would probably be one of those children. And now I hope things have got better. Certainly in the field I work in, we're better at noticing. We're better at kind of using tools to understand what's happening with that child, to kind of find out what's going on in their life, and things that might trigger us to be aware of things that not quite right.
Yeah, yeah.
But when I was a kid, it wasn't really kind of talked about. Certainly, I have no memory of those words ever being, around really.
Yeah.
So I hope that things have changed, and certainly people are more aware of what's happening around them. But yeah.
Yeah. No, that's interesting that you say that. Yeah, I agree with you actually. Things have changed. We've got sort of different words now for things, and you're right. You didn't hear child grooming, or there was kind of like a bit of snigger attached to it.
Yeah.
A few decades ago, it was kind of, and also you had things in comedy shows that were more, that were quite horrific. Now, if you look back at things that, you just wouldn't. But it's strange. I mean, it's not only evil and vile. It's also very strange because children are not. They're not sexual beings. They're not fully developed. They're mentally, physically, and you think, well, how can an adult be physically attracted to? Do you think it is always about the grooming, the control, or do you think that it's an orientation, if you like, and can it be an attraction? It doesn't make it any better, of course. It still makes it absolutely vile.
No. I don't know. I think I think it's potentially a mixture of all those things. Certainly I know from some of the work I do. We hear people talking about, I love this child. This child loves me, and it's like it's a child.
Yeah.
It is a child. It's not that they're incapable of love, but that their understanding of that gets skewed if they are abused. Potentially. And I think certainly I know there is a movement out there where they're trying to make kind of paedophilia asexual orientation the same as kind of LGBT.
Dear.
You're kind of like, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I think is the movement from people who are attracted to children and want to justify it in some way. And I just think that's appalling. I think it's absolutely shocking that people would even think that, but I also know that the people who think that are the ones who do carry those things out. So, I don't think the same way as them.
No. No.
But I think what we need to do is be trying to give the message of, let's stop that kind of stigmatizing of children when they have been abused or exploited or groomed. Because, like I said, the reason people don't say anything, the reason I didn't say anything for years is, one, I just kind of put it in my little car park in my head and pretended that wasn't part of who I was, really. Yeah. And that was a coping strategy.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason why lots of people don't say anything. And like I said, there's also a shame with that. And I think what we need to do is let's stop. Yes, I'm not saying these people don't need support. Paedophiles don't need interventions. Certainly, again, through the work, I know that if you put an intervention in place with a young person who is has kind of problematic sexual behaviours, then they are, I think the figures are not necessarily accurate on this, but 70% less likely to re-offend.
That's interesting.
Okay?
Yeah.
But with adults, that's the opposite. And I'm more than happy. I work with young people who do sexually offend, and I'm quite happy to do that because I know that with intervention, it is less likely they will continue to re-offend. However, my line is I can't do that with adults. That's too pushes my buttons.
Yeah.
So I won't do it. And I work with a number of children who've been through similar experiences to me. I say similar because they're never the same. We're all different. We all cope with it differently. We all find different ways of having our coping strategies. And, potentially I could have been similar to some of the young people I work with, had I gone a different route. I think there's something about resilience. We need to start teaching young people and children from a very young age about building resilience, like not just the consent and understanding you have a right to say no, but, let's make them resilient. Let's put things in place to help their kind of self-esteem, to help their understanding, their ability to say no in given situations, let's make them stronger. And let's not take the responsibility away from the paedophiles, because I think, unfortunately, lots of things are in place where just our language, takes things away from the responsibility from a paedophile. And I know some people will disagree with what I'm about to say. That's fine. We're entitled to our own opinions. But I don't really like the term survivor.
Oh, okay, right.
If people say, "Oh, you're a survivor of sexual abuse," it's like, well, okay, I was the victim of sexual abuse. I happen to be a survivor of lots of things, but I am who I am. Partly because of my experiences, good or bad. But I think if I use the term survivor, it takes away the responsibility from the fact that there was a perpetrator here, and I was the victim of that. So but that's a personal opinion. I'm not saying we should change the language across the world, because people will disagree with me on that, and I think that's a personal thing.
I think it's interesting.
I think we just need to sometimes think about the language that we use, and we are talking about perpetrators of sexual abuse or perpetrators of exploitation, whether that's sexual or criminal or whatever that is. They are still a perpetrator of that, or even domestic violence. I think we should still use that term, and we should still be talking about consequences to your behaviour and the impact of that behaviour has on those victims or survivors, if you want to use that word, because there is an impact.
Yes.
So if we start building resilience in children, then hopefully they have more of a chance as they get older and start developing, and their brain capacity starts to change and understanding starts to change. They will have more of the ability to bounce back from something. So
that's really interesting. Yeah, I'd never really thought of that, but that's interesting you say that, because sometimes when I've used the word victim, I've been thinking, why don't I like that word? And it's because it sort of makes you think. Yeah, it makes you think of. I've never known if I've been patronising in saying about a rape victim or a domestic violence victim, but then I think I'm probably with you on that. It's and a lot of people take offence to that word, so it's interesting that to hear your take on that. I see what you mean. That's
what I mean. We all have something that we prefer in terms of our language, don't we? And some people will really dislike being classed as a victim. Whereas, I was a victim. Yes, I am a survivor. I've been through a lot in my life, not just the kind of sexual abuse, but, and I did have massive amounts of shame, which is why I never said anything for years, but I've kind of worked through that. I know myself pretty well. And it can take some time for people to get to the place where they can accept it for themselves, let alone be public about it.
Yes, I bet.
And I think it's a personal preference. If someone doesn't like the word victim, that's entirely up to them. My personal preference is to say, I was a victim. I'm not a victim any longer. I was. I just happened to have survived through my life. And like I said, that could have been very different. I could have gone lots of different routes in terms of coping, with substance use or, had issues around mental health, all sorts of things, potentially. And I don't know why I haven't, whether I haven't really kind of looked into that deeply. I don't know whether that's, kind of a choice. I mean, there is a choice, but I don't know what makes me maybe slightly different from looking at some of the young people I work with now. And that's part of my job now, is we look at all the things that happen in a young person's life and the impact of that. But to get to someone to talk to, about opening up about some of that stuff can take quite a long time. You have to be in a place where you're ready to talk about that stuff. And I think partly because there is still a stigma attached to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's very sad. I guess it's your own experience has made you passionate to want to, yeah, it can work one of a few ways, can't it? It's, you can either, get to do what you do to reach out and want to help, and or you could go a different route and become an abuser or crumble. But it's good that you've sort of, risen up and said, no, this is not okay, to fight for others that have been. It's a real shame. I'm really surprised to hear that a majority. You mentioned a majority of the time it's people that are known to you. See, I wouldn't have thought of that as well. That did you say people that are known to you, or a family member? Is that the majority?
Well, people are known. It's not always someone who's jumping out of a bush, grabbing someone off the street. Of course, those things happen. Of course, they do. And I'm not minimising either issue. But certainly, the stranger danger thing, that someone's jumping out of a bush, it's not always that.
No.
Sometimes it is someone who's known to the family, or a member of the family, or a close friend, or something, And
that's scary, isn't it? Because these people are our babysitters. These people are our, like you say, take us out for shopping. These are the people that we're supposed to trust, and,
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, I mean, like me, like I said, it was, for me, it was just my half brother was taking me out, on day trips and things, and, spending time with me. And no one knew anything different about that. And I never said anything different, because I like I said, my first memory was when I was about 3. So
Crikey.
For me, that behaviour was not unusual. It wasn't, oh, this is wrong.
Yeah.
Children, they aren't sexual beings.
No.
But if there is something sexual that happens, they do respond to it. And this is also where I think some paedophiles get a skewed message of, but they liked it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, physically, you will have a response, even as a child. You will have a response. It doesn't mean that they like it. But for me, it just became, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary, because it had always happened. So, and I didn't see that as wrong, because this was a person who was a member of my family that I trusted, that I loved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those other things weren't really kind of talked about, or, certainly we didn't, again, I don't remember kind of talking about consent. I mean, obviously this is a long time ago. So, but for me, it wasn't anything different. And you get used to what you do. It becomes automatic. So, we have these things that are automatic behaviours. A bit like if you've ever, I don't know, but did you ever learn to tie a pair of shoes when you were little? Someone showed you how to tie a pair of shoes?
Yeah, probably later than I should have been taught, but yeah.
Okay, and you probably, lots of people get taught like this thing called bunny ears or something. You make bunny ears and then you tie the shoelaces.
Oh yeah, that's right, yeah.
What happens is, once you know how to do it, you don't sit there and think, oh, bunny ears, and you put this loop around this loop and that's how you do it. You just tie your shoelaces.
Yeah.
And that's the same for any other situation, that you get used to knowing how to do it, so you don't do it step by step. You just do it, because it's an automatic behaviour.
Yeah,
So, and for me, it became automatic. It's what I knew. That was the life I knew. And it wasn't until I got to around about 15 and a half, and I thought, something's wrong with this picture. And I couldn't even tell you what that trigger was for knowing that something was wrong with that picture. And I remember saying to him very clearly, not doing this anymore.
Oh, right.
And the feeling is that he was very kind of like, really shocked with that. That's not true, but it didn't happen again. And I think probably because I was older, possibly he thought, oh, okay, I better stop.
Yeah.
Just don't want to get caught or whatever. So I stopped it, and he listened, probably because he was scared. But for me, it had been a part of my life for, 12 years.
Yeah, it's a hell of a long time, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, in that time, there'd also been, a couple of other men as well,
Awful.
who weren't known to me. One was known to the family loosely.
Yeah.
The other one, like I said, wasn't. I remember being in junior school when he came up to the fence. That's when I first have a memory of him.
Oh, right.
And like I said, I was the one who took the chocolate,
Yeah.
But I think because whatever signals I was giving off about that I was vulnerable or that I was the one to target, because I think, unfortunately, we do give off those kind of signals without even being aware of it. And like I said, paedophiles are very good at noticing the vulnerable child or the one that is kind of like, oh, okay, I'll choose them for whatever reasons.
Yeah.
And I think for us, certainly as a professional now, I think, lots of the work with young people is around getting them to recognise when things aren't quite what they seem, and recognising if something is actually, do you consent to that? Is that okay with you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a really famous video, it's called Cup of Tea. I don't know if you've ever seen
right.
it.
No, I'll have to look that up. No, what's that?
But it's a video around consent.
It's
a really, really good video, and we use it quite a lot with young people. It's on YouTube, I think.
I'll have to look at it, yeah.
Yeah, have a look, because it's a very good way of explaining to young people around what consent is. And, so we use things like that, but we also, talk to them very much around the automatic behaviours, and whether that's someone using drugs or using alcohol. We talk about automatic behaviours and then how you can change those behaviours, to recognise, make something else automatic to replace some of the other behaviours that you maybe don't want,
Yeah.
So that's some of the work that we kind of do, really. And yes,
brilliant.
I'm passionate, because I think, like I said right at the beginning, I think we need to stop the mixed messages that we give children. I think we need to start children at a younger age. We need to start teaching them and helping them in terms of their self-esteem and their resilience. We need to teach them around it's not just someone necessarily jumping out of a bush, but yes, be aware of it. But, recognising those kind of signs that, it's your body. It's okay to say no. You don't have to do anything you don't want. You don't have to kiss anyone you don't want. From those very, very simple messages, I think what we need to start doing.
No, I see. Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from there. It's you mentioned about sort of like shame. Is when people don't speak up for a long time, is some of the time, can it also be that there's a fear of not being believed?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And again, this is talking very generally because it's not necessarily the same for everyone. But yeah, I think I know for me that the first time I ever said anything, I was like, oh, no one's going to believe that,
Yeah.
And what we're, in my professional life is what we're told all the time is you don't disbelieve them. And, you do what you can to check those things out, But I think there is a fear of people aren't going to believe that of this person, that can't be true. And they got on so well. They were really good friends. She chose to spend time with him, Well, that doesn't mean that it's not abuse. Like I said, as a child, yes, I chose to spend time with someone who I believed cared for me, I trusted, I loved, he was my half brother, so of course I did. And so then saying something, there is a fear, I think, for some people where no one's going to believe what I'm saying because they're going to say that I should have said something earlier. It took me, like I said, until I was about 32 before I even said the first thing to someone.
Wow.
And bear in mind, like I said, it stopped when I was about 15 and a half. It's a long time. But what I'd done is, like I said, I kind of parked it in my brain and thought, well, no, it never happened, kind of pretending. And it wasn't until I wrote this essay where I really had to look at myself and think about who am I, and part of who I am is the experiences I had as a child. Because one of the things I do say to my young people is every experience you have, good or bad, make up who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And you can learn from the things that aren't so good, and the things that are good you can take forward. But you can also change you can't change what happened, but you can change what you do next.
Yes.
And even the bad experiences, those things will help you, and they will be a part of you, because you can't change it. It's happened. But what you can do is change your reaction to something.
Yes.
You can work on how you deal with some of the impact that might have had. For me, I know that sometimes I would be quite defensive about things. That would be my kind of default position, be defensive, which then came across potentially as being angry. And once I'd kind of gone through counselling, and it took me a couple of attempts to go into counselling.
Yeah, that's understandable.
The first time I went in, I think I went for about 5 weeks and was like, well, this isn't working. This is rubbish.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't rubbish. I was not ready. So then when I went back into counselling, because I was becoming irrationally angry at things, and I knew what that was. I knew that the irrational anger was actually all this deep buried stuff that I had brought to the surface, because I had now made this disclosure to my partner and to myself that I had admitted this thing had happened to me. And then I had all the residual feelings from it, you know, whereas for years I didn't. I could just pretend I was fine. But what I did was use those experiences and turn it around and be able to change that. And those experiences happened, and they do shape part of who I am, but they don't have to define who I am.
Yeah, there's a difference, isn't there? Yeah.
Yes, they happened. I'm not ashamed of talking about it, because it's not my responsibility. It was the perpetrator's responsibility. And I know some people kind of get this, you know, if they make that disclosure to someone, it's like, oh, I'm really sorry, I told you that, I didn't mean to land that on you. And then when I think about it, it's like, why should I be sorry? Because actually, I'm just being honest. I'm just saying this happened, this is factual, it's part of who I am. And I think that comes down to the stigma again, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's you mentioned about memory sort of existing due to certain events that happened. What you mean, like a link and connect, so something you could sort of be somewhere, and because I don't understand about the mind. You have way more understanding about like the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and I guess our brain is a bit like a filing system, isn't it, where we certain things are retrieved. So
our brains protect ourselves, basically. And for some people, that will be that block out all sorts of memories that are anything traumatic, because that's a way of protection. You know, for me, unfortunately, what happened was I'm very good at tapping into the memories of the traumatic stuff that happened. But any other events, I really kind of struggled to pull out. You know, and I remember, you know, a few times my mum, when she was alive, would say something to me, and I would just cover it by saying, oh, yeah, you know, I remember that. I didn't really, but I covered it by saying I did. But that's also a way of part of my brain is saying that we've taken control of that. These things happen to you and they're going to stay there, you know. Whereas for other people, they block those things because the memory, you know, the brain protects itself from those things, you know, and doesn't have any easy recall of those things. Whereas for me, it's the other way around. And now, you know, like if someone asks me about, do you remember doing this as a kid or whatever, I have to say a lot of the time I'll say no. Unless if someone talks about it a lot, and then it will somehow trigger something in my brain, or I see a picture, or that someone will show me something, and then I might go, oh yeah, I remember that. And that's enabled me to have other memories of being a child. But, you know, lots of my memories from being a child actually don't start until about the age of 13, because I became involved in a kind of Sea Cadet group, which was completely removed from anything to do with these other people.
Oh, okay, that's helpful.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, and because it was completely removed, I have really good memories of that time. Prior to that, like I said, they normally have to be triggered or, enabled somehow. I can't just kind of pull them out of my head, And I remember for years, actually, one of my friends was talking about something they remember from being 4 or 5. And I remember being really shocked and saying, "What, you remember that from being 4 or 5?"
Oh,
and what I was trying to do was cover the fact that I remembered being 3, but that was because that's when the sexual abuse started.
Oh, that's okay. That's interesting. Yeah.
So, so I would just lie and say I didn't have any memory of that, whereas I did, but it wasn't a nice memory.
Yeah.
So, and that was about me being, I'm not going to say anything, back to the shame, back to the stigma. I'm not going to say this because of those reasons. So I would just lie,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Do you think when you're working with your young people, does it ever sort of do you ever feel angry on their behalf that you've experienced firsthand a kind of like say no two experiences the same, but knowing that they've sort of gone through horrific things at the hands of cruel people, do you get angry?
Yeah, sometimes I do feel anger, and I feel anger towards the perpetrator of that. I feel anger towards that they have caused an impact to this child and to potentially to that child's development in whatever ways. Some of those might not be obvious for years. Mostly I feel kind of empathy and compassion for the young person, because I don't want to put, even though my anger is aimed at the perpetrator, I can't do anything with that, and why should I give them my energy, really? Why should I give them my time? I would like them to be held accountable, but again, that is out of my control. That's very much up to the person who's been the victim of that. But I think the overriding thing for me is, okay, what can I do to support this young person, and what do they need from me? What are the things that I can help them with, in terms of moving forward? So they are, a lot of them, we talk to them about going into some kind of counselling or getting some support, but it's very much if you're ready, when you're ready, and that might not be for a number of years, but the offer is there. If you ever feel like you want to do it, we certainly don't push them to do it, because again, that's their consent.
So, sure.
Because otherwise you're just doing the same thing. Someone has to be willing to do that, so the offer is there for them. But for the most part, I think the overriding thing is, okay, what can I do to support them? So I don't want to have that wasted emotion.
Yes, I get that. Yeah.
On a perpetrator who's like a vile human being. To, why should I give them my time, really? So
no, I get that. No, I just wonder. I'm just thinking, because it's a massive thing to do, isn't it? And I think I really applaud you in this, because I haven't had, anything like that horrifically happen to me. But it still makes me very angry, and I'm thinking, imagine working with people that have been, victims of this, and it must be. There was some CCTV footage on YouTube, and some things you watch by accident, and you don't really know what it says recommended for you. So why has this come up? And it's
like the cat videos, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's 2 hours watching cat videos.
Yeah. I wouldn't spend 2 hours watching this, but it was just a I think it was a discussion about victims of domestic violence or rape, basically things to do with abusers, and I think that's why this thing came up. It was just a minute or so clip, black and white clip, of a little girl, and she was with her mum, but she just mum was looking at something, and little girl was looking, I think it was like a bucket of toys or something. It looked like Walmart or one of these places, and and you just saw this man walking along, and he grabbed her at the front, and then he walked off, and I really felt quite teary, because the little girl's face, she just it's almost like she just didn't know what had happened, but you knew she was going to remember this for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
And you think,
Yeah.
what did he get out of that? He just did this for like 2 seconds. He walked off, and you think, is there just no? Did you not spend the rest of that day thinking, oh my goodness, I've ruined that little girl's life? You know.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? It makes you wonder why people do the things they do, why people behave in that way, especially towards a child.
Yes.
You know, and I wish I knew, wish I had the answers. You know, there's lots of people I'm sure who wish they had the answers, and I think, you know, I think we should be angry.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we shouldn't. I think we should be angry at perpetrators and abusers. But I think for me, what's paramount is the work I'm doing with that young person.
Yeah, that's the thing to
and
focus
the other
on,
bit is for the other authorities to manage. You know, my role is to try and safeguard that young person and to support them to fulfil whatever it is they want to fulfil. You know, and it might be for one of them, it's just that they get up the next day. You know, they get out of bed or they don't self-harm. That might be a goal for some young people. So that's what you work with, you know, and I would much rather spend my time working with that bit. I don't really want the energy put into the to the abuser.
Yeah, that's good. That's healthy. That's good.
Outside of that, obviously in my personal life, yes, of course I get angry if I see things on the TV or you know, I hear things. It makes me angry. You know, and I use a lot of choice words to describe them. I'm trying to be very good on here, because I'm.
You can edit out to a degree.
But normally, the language I would use would not be for radio, definitely,
wouldn't it?
Or TV. So yes, it makes me angry. But during my work, my professional life, I won't let that take control of it. So
that's good. That's healthy all the way round, isn't it? It's it's like you say, you don't want to waste energy on people that are, you know, not good people.
I mean, the young people, you know, sometimes they talk angrily. You know, if they make a disclosure and they are, you know, talking about it, and they're going through the whole process of the police and all sorts, you know, which can also be very trying. You know, they are angry, and they're allowed to express that anger. You know, we don't try and, you know, ask them to curb their language, you know, nothing like that. They say what they want to say. They can be as angry as they like, as long as that anger doesn't come out or manifest in a way that is going to harm someone else or them, you know, then, you know, they're entitled to have that anger, you know. Yes, be angry. Yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable emotion, you know, to what you've been through and what you've experienced. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then what can we do about using that anger in a different way? You know, so it doesn't manifest in a way that might be harmful. You know.
That's
so.
Good. That's positive.
Yeah, we try and look at other things that we can support them with. So.
Oh, great! Yeah. I know this may be a completely different conversation, but we could go into another hour with this. But just touching on this, because I find it is very fascinating. What do we call it? Personality disorders. Can trauma of whatever kind be a cause of a personality disorder, such as BPD or maybe bipolar?
Well, certainly some kind of like BPD or EUPD, as it's called.
Is it really? Okay.
Which is emotionally unstable personality disorder.
Oh, right.
Then, you know, there has been some talk around, you know, certainly people that have experienced trauma, potentially, not for everyone. Again, it's very generalised. You know, is they don't learn to manage certain emotions as a child. And because they don't learn to manage those certain emotions, then unfortunately that can then manifest later on as maybe a EUPD or something, where they have extremes, kind of like they either love or they hate. They don't particularly like, you know, they don't have that middle ground of that grey area, you know.
Yeah.
And so there are some kind of things where we can say, yes, okay, trauma can have an impact, again, because we're talking about brain development, we're talking about managing emotions, we're talking about coping as a child, and on a brain that is not yet fully developed to understand reasoning, processing, judgments, etc.
Yeah.
Because that's the last part that develops. So you know, potentially, yes, it can have an impact for some people. So, and a lot of young people I work with, you know, do have either traits of EUPD, because obviously that wouldn't get diagnosed under 18. You know, it never does.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So it will be, they would have traits of maybe EUPD, but they wouldn't have a diagnosis of that under 18. So that's not what we do. You know, we don't diagnose under that age. So, but you might see traits of it in some of their behaviours. And certainly some of the young people I've worked with who are, you know, a bit older, you can understand, you know, actually, yes, this person has EUPD. You have to be very clear in what you say to them. You know, sometimes they'll be like, oh, this worker is, you know, awful, they're horrendous, I hate them. And then the next day they absolutely love them. Lots of people experience EUPD in terms of the switch of emotions throughout a day. It can be 50 times in a day. Ooh. Where they'll go from being really, really happy to really, really sad and want to end their life. You know, so, and that can sometimes come out with someone with EUPD. So again, we're talking generally. But, you know, and I see that a lot in some of the older teenagers I work with, kind of like the 18, 19s, you know, where they're okay, really happy, everything's great, and then they have an argument with a partner or a friend, and then they want to end their life, and it's tragic, and their relationship is over, you know.
Right, yeah.
Because there's the extremes. They've never learnt to manage those bits in the middle. So, and certainly in relationships that can be quite difficult.
Yeah.
Because if you have a small argument with someone, like with your partner, I don't know, over you put the toilet roll on the wrong way round or something, I don't know. But potentially, if someone has a UPD, that could be that's it. We've had an argument about it. That's the end of our relationship. We've split up. You know, because it's an extreme. It's an extreme reaction to it.
Yeah.
Because they've never learned that bit in the middle. So
that's
yes,
interesting.
So for some people, it's a long-winded way. I guess it's saying for yes, some people could experience that.
Yeah. That's interesting, isn't it? Because it's, I mean, that is something I can relate to, because I once dated someone who had BPD, she called it, but it was, and what you're explaining there is very similar, you know, snapping and then blaming it on something else, or being busy, or you know, it's but it's,
I mean, and I think that must be an awful way to live, you know, to have
it must be,
this,
yeah,
the switching of emotions that many times throughout a day, you know, and you're having to live through that, you know. Yes, and it's not like someone can give you a pill and say, here you go, here's a cure. It's not how it works.
I was going to ask you about that, actually. Are there things to sort of, is there medication to kind of...
No, there's no medication for it.
Oh,
it's,
right,
okay. Usually something called emotional coping skills.
Oh.
So people learn to cope emotionally. That's why it's called emotional coping skills. But people have to do that and then repeat it. You know, it's not... I remember years and years ago, I did a training course with someone, and she suffered from EUPD, or BPD as it was called, and she had been through kind of therapy, as in emotional coping skills type behaviours, I think 5 times, and it took years to get to the point where she could now work fully, delivering training around this particular issue, because there is no magic cure. You know, it's, you have to learn the skills and then repeat the skills, you know, so you learn it's kind of based around cognitive behaviour therapy, dialectical behaviour therapy, you know, where you can teach people how to manage emotions differently. But you have to keep practicing it, you know. It's not just gonna happen overnight where you're gonna be fine, you know. That's not how it works. So it's not a cure, you know, but you can learn to live with that and to manage those emotions better.
Yeah. So, well, there's some sort of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely. But people have to engage with it, obviously. If you don't engage with it, those things aren't going to stick and you won't learn anything different. It's that saying, isn't it? If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, it's absolutely true. Yeah, it's
yeah.
Oh, It's awful, isn't it, to think that we're sort of born into the world, and life generally is, even if we make it to 20, we've still had a lot of days to live, haven't we? And it's a shame that trauma is very usually caused by other people.
Yes.
Isn't it horrible?
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? And you think about, the kind of people in the world that are willing to cause that kind of level of trauma.
Yeah.
And I guess some people don't even realise it, or don't even think that they are causing trauma.
Do you think? Yeah. Do you recognise? Yeah. I often wonder that, actually. Do they actually know that they're, as horrible as they are?
Well, I don't know. I think that's a bigger question.
It is. We'll do that next time.
I don't know. I've always been fascinated as to how the human brain works, why people do the things they do.
Yeah.
What's going on in your head, to get you to do that? Where does that come from? Whether that comes from trauma, maybe, I don't know. Whether that comes from a chemical imbalance, whether that comes from, I don't know. There's that argument between, are you born evil, or do you?
Yes.
That kind of argument, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I think that's why people have a fascination with serial killers. You think, what's going on in your head? I'd love to know. I find it really interesting.
It is fascinating. Yeah. Do you have
psychology?
Was it good people doing horrible things, or horrible people doing good things? And it's a big one, but.
If you ever find out, let me know, Deborah.
I think you've got the brain to find that out more than I have. It's very, just listening to you, it's very, you're very insightful, and it's, it's been great to chat with you, and thank you for sharing of your own personal experience and for what you do for these young people. It's just amazing, and truly are a blessing all round. I think, and thank you for being my guest.
Oh, you're very welcome.
To speak to you.
So maybe we'll chat again at some point.
Yeah, we could do. Yeah, we'll do another one. Well, where we left off, we'll do that with why do people do the things they do. That would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah.
Thanks again, my dear friend, and to the audience at home. Thank you for tuning in. And if there's been anything here said that resonates with you, do step forward in seeking help. You're not alone. And till next time, lots of love and God bless.